Hello, everybody. David Shuster here. Trump administration officials keep lashing out and losing their cool in the wake of a Supreme Court ruling on tariffs. The justices said that most of the Trump tariffs are unconstitutional because Trump did not get congressional approval. Several companies, including FedEx, are now suing the administration to get the tariff money they paid returned. On CNN, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent bristled when asked about tariff refunds.
Dana, when you say it's a big question, that's bad framing because the Supreme Court didn't even address that. The Supreme Court remanded it down to a lower court, and we will follow what they say, but that could be weeks or months when we hear them. So the Supreme Court did not address refunds.
Now, while it's true the Supreme Court did not address tariff refunds, it is still possible the lower court will order the Trump administration to pay the tariff money back. And that totals more than $134 billion. Last year, the Trump Justice Department told a federal appeals court that if there was an adverse court ruling, the administration would refund the tariffs. And the CNN anchor read back to Treasury Secretary Bessent a direct quote from a Justice Department legal brief filed with the appellate court.
If tariffs imposed on plaintiffs during these appeals are ultimately held unlawful, then the government will issue refunds to plaintiffs.
Again, I'm not going to get out ahead of the court. We will follow the court's direction, but as I said, that could be weeks or months away. That decision was not rendered on Friday.
What do you think? You're the Treasury Secretary. What do you think should happen? In the past, you have said it is possible.
Again, I want to point to what we're doing. The president, the administration remains undeterred in reshoring American factories and getting rid of these massive trade imbalances.
But even with the Trump tariffs in place over the past 10 months, the administration has failed on those issues. When it comes to reshoring factories and boosting manufacturing, an administration report says the United States has lost manufacturing jobs every single month of President Trump's second term. Also, when it comes to trade imbalances, a report recently found that the U.S. trade deficit for goods went up last year and just hit a record high. In other words, on trade and manufacturing, even with the Trump tariffs in place, the numbers have been going in the wrong direction. Only now, the U.S. Supreme Court has struck down most of the Trump tariffs, and a lower court could take the administration at its word and order a tariff refund to companies, small businesses, and American consumers. And according to the data, the average U.S. household last year paid an extra $1,700 because of the tariffs. Refund! Where do we apply? While American consumers seek to get our money back, Donald Trump's Commerce Secretary is in dire need of getting his reputation back. Howard Lutnick, who has already been busted this year lying about his connections with Jeffrey Epstein, is now getting shredded over promises he made about the tariff case. Last fall, when the U.S. Supreme Court heard the arguments over the Trump tariffs, Lutnick insisted most of the justices could not conceive of a situation where a president doesn't have emergency tariff authority.
It just didn't make sense. The justices were on the president's side. You're hearing it here from me. President Trump is going to win this case.
Oops! Not only did President Trump lose the case 6-3, but two of the justices Trump appointed to the court, Amy Coney Barrett and Neil Gorsuch, ruled against the Trump tariffs. So this was a brutal and embarrassing Trump defeat. And a few months ago with Sean Hannity, Howard Lutnick guaranteed a court victory not just once in that Fox interview, but repeatedly. And Lutnick claimed the news stories at the time reporting that most of the justices were skeptical of the Trump tariffs were wrong, and that the justices respected the importance of the tariffs.
I think the justices know it. They know the law. They went over the words. It was crystal clear if you sat through the second half of today. And a lot of those articles today were written in the first half. You listened to the second half today, you left like I did, very confident that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, is going to win this case because these powers protect America.
But it's the job of the courts to protect and honor the Constitution. And the Supreme Court has now made it clear that Donald Trump cannot impose his tariffs without congressional approval. So why not go to Congress? Well, even Republicans say that Donald Trump does not have the votes. Amidst all of this, there is one more controversy hanging over Howard Lutnick. His former financial trading firm, Cantor Fitzgerald, which was run by Lutnick's sons, appears to have a conflict of interest on the tariffs. Last year, documents obtained by Wired revealed that the firm explored trades tied to potential tariff refunds. The documents indicated that the firm sought to purchase the rights to hundreds of millions of dollars of potential tariff refunds that companies would be owed if the courts ruled against Donald Trump. The idea was that if a company had paid, say, $10 million in tariff money and was owed that much, $10 million in a refund, Cantor would give the company $3 million immediately so the company could avoid long-lasting litigation. The company would get less than it was owed, but would get a payout sooner. And Cantor, in turn, thought that it could make money by eventually turning those refund rights into more money in litigation payouts. Given Howard Lutnick's involvement in the tariff battles, though, Democratic senators declared that the Cantor proposal raised questions about insider dealing and conflicts of interest. Well, the Cantor Fitzgerald firm now says it never executed any transactions or took any risk on the legality of the tariffs. Did Cantor Fitzgerald explore it and not close any deals? Or did the Lutnick sons realize this effort could be insider trading and decided to pull back? Either way, the Cantor Fitzgerald documents are raising new questions about the Lutnick family, Howard Lutnick, and the greed that seems to surround everybody connected to the Trump administration. The other question, of course, is whether the Trump administration greed will extend to the money owed in tariff refunds. The Trump team could seek to have the U.S. Treasury keep that money, even though it was collected illegally. The lower courts will soon rule on refunds. In the meantime, members of the administration, including Donald Trump and Scott Bessent, are clearly agitated. The Supreme Court handed them a humiliating defeat that could cost the administration hundreds of billions of dollars. Did you know that the big wireless carriers like Verizon and AT&T made over $18 billion in profit last year? How? By overcharging you for unlimited data, most of which you probably aren't even using. But what if you could get paid to use your phone less and only pay for the data you do use? Well, with Noble Mobile, you can. For just $50 a month on their No Bull plan, you get unlimited data, and whatever data you don't use, you get cash back right in your pocket. People who switch to Noble can save an average of $500 to $1,000 a year. It's a no-brainer. And by switching to Noble, you're directly supporting TYT and our mission of bringing you honest, independent news. So give Noble a try and make the switch today. Scan the QR code on the screen now or visit go.tyt.com/plan. That's go.tyt.com/plan. By the way, an ICE agent in Florida recently imploded after being stopped by a black police officer for a DUI.
Are you Haitian?
That's nothing to do with my race, buddy.
My question was, are you Haitian?
In the Florida Keys, that is ICE agent Scott Deseroff. He keeps questioning the nationality of the police officer who pulled him over for a DUI.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where he's from. Okay. Look, man, I really need you to do the exercise. If you don't do it, then I'm going to say that you're refusing to do the exercise. I get it. You need a minute. I gave you a few minutes, okay? But
Let me talk to your supervisor.
not right now, sir.
Check out that video at the link below. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.